It's Victory Monday for the 49ers, who won 33-17 against the Miami Dolphins yesterday at Levi Stadium. We're going to go over the 49ers injury report. We're going to look back at that game, go through some of my big observations. I'll take some of your questions on the game. All that and more will be coming up next on tonight's Jack Hammer Show. Everybody, hope you're doing well. This is Jack Hammer. Wanted to come on and talk to you a little bit about last night's big game for the Flyers. Now that a little bit of time has passed and the emotions of the game aren't there, and be able to reflect, watch it on the TV copy. Just going to get a second viewing of the game and what my thoughts are. Tomorrow I'll be back with the film breakdown, and we'll get into even more details on the game there. But want to shout out a few folks over in the comment section really quick before we get the show on the road. We've got Lucas Pesci coming to us from Austria. He is a member of the Toolbox. He says, "Hi, Jack. How you doing, Lucas? Good to have you on board. Thanks for tuning in. I know it must be either late night, early morning over there for you right now." We have Dabuda says, "Hi, Jack. Good to have you on board also, Dabuda." And Luke Walsh coming in. He says, "Hey, everyone." And also says, he looks like he has some questions that we'll get into. We'll get to that in a minute. Blind Tom, 61, another member of the Toolbox, jumps in and says, "Hi, Jack. Good to have you on board as well." And then up at the top of it, we have couple of other folks, Alan Elizer, "Happy Monday, Jack, and all the 49er faithful and members of the Toolbox. What should 49er fans' expectations be going forward with Purdy as the starter, or do you think the 49ers go get Baker?" I'll get into that question in just a minute, Alan. That's actually a really good one because that's going to be one of the first topics we'll talk about after we get through the injury report. And then Willie Rodriguez jumps in, says, "What's up, boss? Love your show. All the content and videos you put up. What's up with Rob Shute? He hasn't done your show. You guys are good together." Hey, Willie, good to have you on. I'm glad that you really appreciate the content and the videos and everything. As far as Rob goes, Rob is he's got some stuff going on right now work-wise that takes him away, that right now we haven't really been able to connect with our schedules. But we have been in communication regularly, and we've got that lined up. We're going to be coming to you at 7 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays here soon, just working on getting everything going between him and my commuting and all those types of things. Sometimes it's not, we haven't been able to connect recently, but that's going to change in the near future. So keep it locked into the channel. We'll get to that. We have Jesus says, "Saludos. Purdy has nothing to lose and play all out." That's right. He doesn't. He has nothing to lose. It's time to go. Sean 951 Niners, bang, bang, Niner game. Right on. And Foy Daniel says, "Hi, Jack. Can we get Baker Mayfield to back up Purdy?" The 49ers could do that if Purdy falls through the waiver wire to him. I think the 49ers are 25th on that list. So 24 teams would have to pass on him before the 49ers could get him on if they put in a waiver claim. Not so sure if that's going to happen. It didn't sound like Kyle Shanahan was very enthusiastic today about the possibility of adding Baker Mayfield to the roster. So that's that portion of it. And then really quick, I want to get into the injury report, and then we get into my first takeaway is going to be about the Brock Purdy situation. And then that kind of goes along with Ellen's question from earlier. So we'll get into that. But really quick, 49ers injury update. Everybody already knows about Jimmy Garoppolo, out for the season with a foot injury, going to require surgery. They're not exactly sure what the nature of the injury is. They're not sure how many bones are broken. They're not sure if it's a Liz Frank injury, which would extend that time to recuperate and recover. They're not sure exactly what it is. He's going through getting more opinions, and so they didn't want to give us any more information. If you want to know all about the 49ers, what Kyle Shanahan said today, you can, his press conference, there were not even this press conference, but his conference call with the media. I recorded that. It's up on the channel, so you can hear that as well if you haven't heard it yet. So Jimmy Garoppolo out for the season with a broken foot. Also, Tarvarius Moore, he has a knee injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks. I haven't really seen much of him other than on special teams, but he's going to be out for a few weeks. Also, Hassan Ridgeway, and he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. He has a pec injury. Yesterday, they thought originally it was a shoulder, became his pec. Later on in the game, when they rolled him out, he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So we won't see him again during the regular season. The best bet for Ridgeway is probably late in the playoffs, maybe in the Super Bowl when the 49ers get there. And then the last injury that came up on today's injury report was Nick Bosa. He's dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. They're going to have to nurse that throughout the week, according to Kyle Shanahan. They'll see where he is, but that should be something that he can manage throughout the week, and he'll be fine. Bosa usually takes Wednesday off of practice anyway, so as a vet day kind of thing. So if he sits out on Wednesday, that won't be a big deal. We'll see what happens on Thursday and Friday. I would expect to see him out there Thursday and Friday for sure. Foy Daniels says, hit that like button, please. If you guys could do that for me, it'd be fantastic. And I want to get into, so when I looked at the game yesterday and I look back, here's some of the things that stood out to me. And I'm going to go through this just like I did last week, where it's similar to the process that I went through during training camp. So we'll just give you the names of the guys that stood out to me, give you what I thought was the positive, the negative, whatever it was. And for me, I'm going to start off with Brock Purdy. You need to start off with the quarterback in this situation, because when you look at the circumstances surrounding Purdy's entry into the game, his performance overall was really good. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw me mention early on about towards the middle, the end of the first half, there was probably about 5 minutes left to go in the first half. I think the Flyers had just punted. I tweeted out that, Purdy was a little erratic. The ball was kind of all over the place. But as long as the 49ers as long as he didn't throw the ball to the other team, the 49ers would be fine. And that's really what happened. He did a good job. He held onto the ball, didn't make too many mistakes. He was Mr. Irrelevant because he was the last pick in the draft. But whatever you want to say, he was 25 of 37 for 210 yards. He had a couple of touchdowns and one interception. The one interception wasn't even a big deal. It was fourth and 4 around the 39, 40-yard line. You take a shot down the right sideline to one of your best players, and Brandon Ayuk, it gets intercepted, and Miami gets backed up inside their own 20 anyway. So, it's a really nice play from the 49ers standpoint. Really like that. Not only did Purdy become the first ever Mr. Irrelevant, to complete a pass in the NFL, he became the first ever to even attempt a pass in an NFL regular season game. And, seventh round draft pick. There was a lot of talk whether he was going to make this roster or if it was going to be Nate Sudfeld even making it, right? And here he is starting for the 49ers, put up a good game. And, the big thing here is, where do they go from this point? That's the question. Where do the 49ers go from here? 25 of 37, 210, two touchdowns, one interception. If you look at it, let's look at it this way. I might catch some flack for this, but I don't care. The 49ers now have won big games late in the season in back-to-back years with a rookie quarterback under center. Last year it was Trey Lance. Yesterday it was Brock Purdy. In both of those games, the rookies led their team to 23 offensive points against the Houston Texans, who were a bottom of the half of the league for last season. Trey Lance led the offense to 23 points. Yesterday, Brock Purdy steps in after Garoppolo goes down on the first possession. He leads the offense to 23 points. It was pretty impressive, I thought. Especially like I said, he's a 7th-round draft pick who had not taken a snap with the first-team offense, according to Kyle Shanahan today. Was getting, if you were there during training camp, that other than during team period when they were running move the ball period, I guess is the better way of putting it, he would only get a couple of reps. So typically in training camp, the starter gets 4 plays. The backup guy might get 4. That's the way the 49ers have been done it the 2 years that I've been there now. Starter gets 4, backup gets 4. The third string guy gets the leftovers, which is usually 2. And then the only time that third string guy gets more than that is when they get in the move the ball period. And sometimes they'll even cut that guy short. So for the lack of reps that Purdy had, overall, I know that there were some throws that he missed. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, I already mentioned that there were balls that should have been easy completions that sailed over guys' heads. I get it, but you're talking about a guy who was taken in the 260s in the draft, coming out and completing 68% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, and the only interception is a shot play that the coach called based on the situation. That's a pretty good performance. Now, like I said, where's it going to go from here? It's not uncommon for us to see untested quarterbacks come in and look good for a game, maybe 2, we know all that all too well out here in San Francisco, right? We saw Nick Mullins, and we went through the Nick Mullins experience in 2018, and then again in 2020 when Jimmy Garoppolo went down. We've been through this, and we saw Nick Mullins come out against the Oakland Raiders at the time on Thursday night and just blow them out. And then we saw him come back the following week against the New York Giants, play okay, but make just enough mistakes to ruin the game for the 49ers and they would lose. So we've been through this before. And so can the 49ers weather the storm? I think that's the question that will be answered. And if you follow me last week, I said that I think that Jimmy Garoppolo's health determines the 49ers ability to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think that changes at all. I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year, even though they have a terrific defense. I just don't think that Brock Purdy is going to be able to do it. There's been a number of people that have made this comment that I'm about to make. Connor Orr, who writes for Sports Illustrated, made it. Joe Staley, I heard him say it today on KMBR. There's probably others that I'm missing. So if you heard somebody else say this, I apologize. But what Joe Staley said, that's the one I'm going to use. What Joe Staley said is that the 49ers, since Kyle Shanahan took over here in San Francisco, have been working to build a team that is not reliant on the quarterback. It's not driven by the quarterback. It's driven by the defense. It's driven by the playmakers. And really all the quarterback needs to do is facilitate everybody else, get them the ball, and not screw it up. We saw Mullins screw it up. We saw Beathard screw it up. That's going to be the question for Brock Purdy is, can he not screw it up? Can he make a few plays and not turn the ball over? And we'll find out a lot about that moving forward. And I think that's really, I for myself, what I've said, if you followed me throughout the year, going back to training camp during preseason, I said that I felt like Brock Purdy was a more mobile version of Nick Mullins, a guy that would make some plays that make you raise your eyebrows, and the guy that's going to come back and make some really head-scratching throws, and you're just like, how could you miss that? And that's my feeling on Brock Purdy. So that's kind of where I am. We'll see what happens. We'll see how this whole thing plays out for the 49ers. Looking at it, one thing I do want to say is I think it's interesting what was said about the whole situation from Fred Warner. Because the 49ers, if you take yourself back to the preseason, you take yourself back to training camp and mini camp and all that time of the year, the 49ers refrain that they said constantly was that they have enough playmakers to allow Trey Lance to make his mistakes, to get into a groove, to weather the storm early on while he was getting his feet wet in the NFL and all that kind of stuff. They have so many, they had a lot of people on that side of the ball that can make plays, just needs to protect it, do what he does best, and they'll be good. Well, this is what Fred Warner said last night when asked about Brock Purdy. I got all the confidence in the world in Purdy, said Warner. It's a lot to ask of a rookie being thrust into the position he's in. At the same time, he doesn't need to do much. He has so many weapons on that side of the ball to get the ball to. His job is to protect the football. We have a really good offense, so he's in the best position possible. Again, that's very similar to what we were hearing before the season when the quarterback was going to be Trey Lance. So it hasn't changed yet. It's really moved on and continued. So let's go through the super chat. And yes, thank you, James. Appreciate it. That's super chat Jack to death. Thank you for the super chat as well, James, to do that. I'm going to go from back to top. There were some other ones up there. I got you. Giovanni Miller thank you for the super chat. Says, can Jimmy come back for the playoffs? No, he's out for the season. The broken foot, the timing where they are right now, it's not going to be able to heal in time for the playoffs. The playoffs are only 6 weeks away. That's not enough time for a broken bone to heal. So no Jimmy Garoppolo this year for the playoffs. He's gone. I think we likely saw his last play as a 49er on that sack at the end of the first possession of the game on Sunday. DeBuda comes in. He says, pick one 49er backup, Purdy, Mullins, or Beathard. I think I really liked what I saw in Nick Mullins. I thought Nick Mullins made a lot of plays, but he just, made too many mistakes. Beathard is a guy who had a really strong arm, but he was really inaccurate, didn't see the field very well. And there's a reason why he's, I think, a third stringer somewhere else now. I don't know if he's still in Jacksonville or where he is exactly. So that leaves you with Brock Purdy, and just based off of, recency bias with Purdy, I'd probably go with him, just purely based on that, because we just saw what he did on last night or yesterday afternoon. The 49ers just need him to be better than Nick Mullins and Beathard. That's all the 49ers need out of Brock Purdy right now. Be better than Mullins, be better than Beathard, protect the football, get the ball to your playmakers, like what Fred Warner said and like what Joe Staley said, and they can get going. The only issue that I have there is that at some point in the season, especially in the playoffs, at some point, your quarterback needs to be able to make a play. And that's why the 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl. It's why they didn't win the 2019 Super Bowl. The quarterback couldn't make the big play when it was needed. It's why they didn't win the NFC Championship game in 2021. The Rams quarterback made the big play a couple of times, even though he almost threw an interception and almost threw a game away. But Jimmy Garoppolo didn't make the big play. The other two quarterbacks did, and that's why the 49ers didn't win a Super Bowl. So I think they can get into the playoffs, maybe win a game, maybe two. I just don't think you can win the Super Bowl if your quarterback isn't a playmaker. And that's the one thing when it comes to their thought process, and what Joe Staley said that I think causes you to step back and say, hey, hold on a second. And then we have Blind Tom. Thank you very much for your super chat, Blind Tom, also a member of the Toolbox. He says, I don't care what round he was drafted in. He's a special one. I think he's a winner, even though he might have some bad spots during his first year. I'm definitely a fan. And Blind Tom, the one thing that I was thinking about as I rewatched the game, and I've listened to people talk, and I heard Joe Staley talk about what former 49ers offensive lineman Adam Snyder said. Adam Snyder spent some time around Purdy in Arizona. And basically what Snyder said is that, I'm totally paraphrasing here, I didn't memorize this, but it was basically, this guy is he's a tough guy. He's gonna grind it out. He's gonna do whatever it takes to get there. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not the biggest dude, but he's got the biggest heart, and he can make plays for you. And when I watch him play, and I hear those words coming from Adam Snyder and Joe Staley, through Joe Staley, that to me sounds like the way that people talked about Jeff Garcia back in the late 90s, early 2000s. A guy that just played with grit and toughness and just lived and breathed football. That's kind of what Jeff Garcia was all about. And I think that's who Brock Purdy is. And that's the way people are trying to sell him to the 49ers fan base and all of us. And so I think we'll see how this plays out. The fact that the guy was the last quarterback taken in the draft, and the fact that he's come in and he has not wavered at all in his belief in himself, and he just keeps doing what he needs to do. And he got his chance to go out and play on Sunday, made the most of it. Now, can he keep making the most of it? That's the only question. If he keeps playing the way that he played on Sunday, the 49ers are going to win games because they have the playmakers. He got the ball to his playmakers enough times to score. The turnover didn't hurt him. And when this game was tied at 21-20, they were behind when he got in the game. So, down 7-3, touchdown. Tied at 10, throws the 49ers down the field for a touchdown to take the lead. Gets a couple of 6 points in the second half, and put 9 points actually, and they put the game away. So there's a lot of things to like about what Brock Purdy did on Sunday. And like DeMarcus says, Purdy didn't look jittery. I know he didn't. He stepped in, he played just like you would expect a guy to play, and he missed some throws, like I said. And you got to point those out, and that's not good. There were some rough patches for Brock Purdy yesterday, but the overall, given the fact that he was a guy coming off the bench who almost never took starting reps, that was a good performance from him last night. We'll just have to see where he goes from here. Nico Salachi says, I would say Jimmy is not that good, but we do better with Jimmy. Yeah, absolutely. That's why whatever it is, Garoppolo. One thing about Garoppolo this year was that he I wouldn't say that he was making more plays than in the past, but he wasn't making the stupid mistakes that he made in the past. His interception percentage was down, and he was playing a little bit better. So that's correct. But now we'll see what Brock Purdy can bring. I think there's a chance that Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo end up being the same kind of guy. Maybe Brock Purdy makes me eat my words completely. In that article that I wrote where I said that the 49ers Super Bowl hopes ride on Jimmy Garoppolo being healthy. Maybe he makes me eat my words with that. I would like nothing more than for that to happen for Brock Purdy and the 49ers, because that'd be fun to go cover a Super Bowl. And we'll see how it all plays out for him. Yes, armchair quarterback. This is one of the things that I talked about last year with Trey Lance as well. Warner also made the point that he has been playing against the best D in the NFL all year. That can't hurt. That's one of the points that I made about Trey Lance and how we saw growth in Trey Lance from his first start in Arizona to the start against the Texans, right? That's the other piece that I mentioned that last year. I talked a lot about this, that, didn't feel like Lance had to be thrown to the fire right away. Let him work on against the scout team, let him get going into the NFL and let him play. We'll see. We'll see if this all works out for Brock Purdy and the 49ers this year. Diego Martinez says Purdy is fearless. He said he waits to get hit, so he feels like he's playing. Absolutely. When was the last time you heard a quarterback say that? Jeff Garcia? I think, Jeff Garcia definitely would have been in that category. I think Jimmy Garoppolo might have said that as well at one point, because Jimmy Garoppolo, being an ex-linebacker, I think he might have said that at one point as well. Who knows? You're right, Blind Tom. I do, and I will. I'll do that as soon as I get done here. I want to come on and talk to you guys a little bit though tonight. So do have a little bit of a cold that I'm fighting through. Just popped up last night on the drive home. Now let's get off the quarterbacks for a minute. Unless you guys want to keep talking quarterbacks, keep hitting me up with the super chats, and I'll turn back to it. But the other thing I want to talk about was Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, some of the players on the Niners offense, in particular McCaffrey. Because you look at his running numbers, and they haven't been all that great. He was held to under 4 yards per rushing attempt for the third time in the last 4 weeks. Other than the game against Arizona, he's been held under that 4 yard per carry mark. But that doesn't mean he hasn't been a spark plug that's really helped this 49ers offense. Against Miami, McCaffrey accounted for 146 of the 49ers' 351 yards. So roughly 42, 43% of the 49ers offensive output came from Christian McCaffrey. And he became the first 49er to lead the team in both rushing and receiving in the same game, since Mostert did that against the Cardinals on opening week in 2020. When you look at McCaffrey's day, he had 8 catches for 80 yards. Those 8 catches resulted in 5 touchdowns or 5 first. I would have been really awesome if he had 5 touchdowns, 5 first downs and a touchdown. So 6 of those 5 receptions for Christian McCaffrey yesterday were either a first down or a touchdown. 5 first downs, 1 touchdown. He also had 2 rushing first downs as well. So he had 7 of the 49ers' 24 first downs came from Christian McCaffrey. His running, like I said, has been a little bit down, but he's been doing pretty good overall. Sean Tuber says, "Hi, Jack. How you doing, Sean? Good to have you on board." Why does it seem the Niners lose more players to injuries than most teams? You look at the Jimmy Garoppolo play last night. That's just a bad deal. The guy just falls on his knee. That's not something that results, comes from the training staff or anything like that. I think some of their injuries come from lack of contact and going a little bit lighter and during training camp and those kind of things, but who knows? But that was just a really tough one when it comes to Garoppolo. I didn't see the injury to Ridgeway. I didn't see that one, how that happened, but I do think that part of the 49ers issues with injuries comes down to the whole deal when it comes to the way that they practice. Foy Daniel says 69 missed his man. No, you watch that play. That one starts off because you get pressure off the left side. Trent Williams steps down. Nobody blocks the defensive end. It's a free runner. Jimmy Garoppolo bails out to his right, and they just get, he gets hit. And again, that's another thing that Joe Staley talked about today on the radio. Listen to him talk, and he said right there in that situation, the Flyers are in a 5-man protection. They brought 7, so they're not going to be able to block everybody. Because of the way the blocking's going, they're sliding it to the right already. He's got to step inside because of where the defensive linemen are. I'm talking about Trent Williams down the left side. And that for Jimmy Garoppolo, he needs to get the ball. And if the hot read isn't there right away, he needs to run to his right. The scramble is to your right because that's the way that your offensive line is blocking. You watched the play last night from yesterday, and that's what you see. You see the free runner, you see the hot read taken away, and you see Jimmy Garoppolo try to escape to his right, drag the defenders a couple of yards before he gets tackled, trying to get back as close as he could to the line of scrimmage so that they can kick a field goal, save the points. If Jimmy Garoppolo had just fallen down, he's still healthy, but he was fighting to keep the Flyers in scoring position, and it's going to cost him a season, and probably cost him a lot of money too. But yeah, going back to McCaffrey, like I said, 146 of the 49ers, 351 yards. He just makes plays for the 49ers, and he's not your stereotypical running back, but he's just an offensive playmaker. He's an offensive weapon. Does multiple things for them. He had the touchdown yesterday that put them up 17-10 right at the end of the first half. So that was really good. And then Jordan Mason, you got to talk about him a little bit, the undrafted rookie free agent. Saw the most action of his career yesterday, finished with 51 yards on 8 carries. But you got to take a look at that game because it was really a tale of 2 different halves in some ways for Mason. He started out the game hot, but as the game wore on, it appeared like Miami caught on to what was happening. And what I'm saying there is that when Mason came in the game, he pretty much knew what was coming. It was going to be a run, and it was going to be a zone run. You didn't know if it was going to the left or the right, but you knew that when he came in the game, where you could feel very confident that when he came in the game, what the Flyers were going to do was they were going to do a zone run at you, and it's just a matter of all your guys playing their gaps responsibilities, and then take him down. And that's what we saw happening as the game went on. With Mason, he started off his first 4 carries of the game, he picked up 43 yards. His last 4, 8. The Dolphins kind of figured out what was going on, and they shut him down. He had, like I said, you look at the numbers for him, I think it was 11, 19, 7, and 6. I think somewhere around like that was his first 4 carries. But then the second half, it's 1, 2, 0, 4, or something like that. It just wasn't there for him in the second half. And I think it was it had to do with the Miami Dolphins figuring out what they were running at him. Big City Man, going back to the previous one, says CMC is the reason we won 5 straight. I think his addition has definitely helped this offense in a lot of different ways. I think it's one of the reasons why we've seen the interceptions go down. They have a guy that they can check the ball down to and pick up a few yards. I think that was helping Jimmy Garoppolo before the injury. It's going to help out possibly Brock Purdy go as well. That's what else. I thought he got the team back in field goal range on that run, sucky injury, but at least I can see why he tried to get up the field a little there. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was talking about earlier. You're right there, Armjar. And then Spy Nick Danger comes in. Let's make sure everybody remembers. Hit that like button. If you guys can do that, that'd be fantastic. Tisha Edmond says, do we think about the draft? Not right now. We'll get to that after the season. I don't foresee any of the Flyers getting a quarterback anywhere in this draft, at least not in the top. I don't have a pick in that thing until round 3. So unless they trade away a quarterback or something like that to pick up a second-round pick. Dusty Gold wants to know, what is the status of Kinlaw? Will he see the field this season? No status update on Javon Kinlaw. Nobody's asked about him for the last couple of weeks. Maybe that's something I should ask on Wednesday. See where his status is and where he is on coming back. I know they're hoping that he can get back on the field, but I think Eric Armstead's return really had a bigger impact anyway. Are you going to dance for $1 again? I remember that. I don't think I ever danced for $1. I think my dancing moves were because I made a bet with some folks that if the Flyers got back to 500, that I would do the Hammer Time dance. It didn't have to do with a bet. It was for money. It just had to do with, I didn't get any money out of it. It just happened to do with me doing the goofy dance because I said the 49ers, if they can get back to 500, I'd do it, and they did. So, and then the last one I want to talk about on the 49ers offensive side is Deebo Samuel. He finished with 6 catches, 58 yards. That's the most receiving yards for Samuel in a game since week 6 in Atlanta. 58 yards. That's the most that we've seen from him since week 6 in Atlanta. That's where things are right now with Deebo Samuel in the passing game. In addition to that, though, Samuel, I think, had the most exciting 4-yard loss in 49ers history. It was right after the 49ers had converted on 4th and short, the sneak by Brock Purdy to pick up the first down. I think Kyle Shanahan was kind of feeling himself a little bit right there and decided that he was going to go for a big shot. And instead of doing it on a pass play, he ran a end around. Dolphins got tons of penetration. It looked like they were going to drop Samuel for a loss of about 10. Made about half the Dolphins defense seemingly miss him and was able to pick up some yardage, and it was only a 4-yard loss at the end of the play. But it was a really exciting play by Samuel there, even though it was a loss of 4 yards. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys really like Brock Purdy, so I'm going to keep talking about Brock Purdy as long as you guys keep asking me questions about him. Mark Hott says, is Kyle going to test Brock Purdy's arm strength? See how far he can throw it? You're going to see him throw the ball down the field. I said this yesterday on Twitter. Brock Purdy has a stronger arm than Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no doubt about it. I think Brock Purdy also throws a better deep ball than Jimmy Garoppolo. In training camp, there was a couple of times. There's one instance in particular that I remember was a deep ball down the left sideline, and that thing was just a beauty for a touchdown. Really watching, didn't really get a good glimpse of it during the training camp. So it's more of, for me, it's been more since Trey Lance went down. I always am there, try to always be at practice on Wednesday. It's the day that I can get up to Santa Clara for practice. And typically what part of their practice is always the quarterbacks throwing to receivers. And so you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy standing next to each other. Garoppolo throws the 10-yard out. Well, Purdy throws something over here, then they flip, and then you have Purdy throwing the 10-yard out, and then they go back and forth. And I think it's pretty safe to say that Brock Purdy's arm is stronger than Jimmy Garoppolo's. I don't think it's weaker. Let's put it that way. I think there's a little more zip to that ball with Brock Purdy. What happened to Danny Gray? Oh, he was on the field a little bit. Let me see, that one didn't pop up. Mark was asking what happened to Danny Gray. He was on the field a little bit yesterday, but they're not getting the ball to him. He had some snaps yesterday. I don't know how many it was, but I did see him out there on a couple of different running plays, even early in the game. But he's just not getting the ball in his direction. Itchy95 says, Jimmy's having arguably his best season. I feel bad for him. I'm not sure I can say Jimmy is injury prone, but definitely seems to have bad luck. I believe 2019 is the only season he completed. It is. He missed time in all the other ones. And I think it's safe to say he's injury prone. The guy's missed. He played a couple of games for the Patriots before getting injured in 2016. Came to the Niners, played 5 weeks. And then in 2017. In 2018, he got injured in the 3rd game of the season. 2019 played everything. 2020 injury early on. I think that was game 2 out in New York, on and off the roster. Last year, the injuries, a couple of different occasions. I think the first one popped up in week 2 against Seattle, and then this year. So there's definitely reason to say that Jimmy Garoppolo is injury prone. Sorry. Bomber T wants to make sure we all believe in Brock Purdy. I think we do. Daryl Smock, thank you for the super chat. Says, Jack, you better not get us sick. Did you think Purdy would be as good as he was yesterday? Absolutely not. I did not. Like I said, my feeling on Brock Purdy is always that has always been that he's a more mobile Nick Mullins. I said that earlier in the show. When he came yesterday, I like, well, let's hold on to your butts. Let's see what happens. And he surprised me. And as the game wore on, he seemed to get more comfortable, made more plays, and the team around him, like Joe Staley said, they have the playmakers. Those guys helped him out along the way. He didn't do anything stupid. He held on to the ball. I was not expecting that from Brock Purdy yesterday. So kudos to him. Wasn't what I expected. And now maybe he's going to make me eat my words on the whole Jimmy Garoppolo is who the 49ers need to get to the Super Bowl. We'll find out. So, and Daryl, I promise you're not going to get sick through the mic. It's been sterilized. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Let's see. Oh, look at that. We got some things that need to be taken off. Luke Walsh says, where are you, Lukey? Okay. There it is. Why the free runners towards our quarterback from the Dolphins? What was happening was the Dolphins were running a bunch of zero-man coverages. And what that means is they take the safety out of the middle of the field, they put everybody in man coverage, man up, and they bring guys. And usually in that case, you're bringing 5, sometimes 6, and you only have 5 guys to block. So there's going to be at least one that's going to be uncovered. Just every time they did that, that free runner got through. And the 49ers, for the most part, early on, at different times, they struggled a little bit with being able to get to the hot read because of the coverage by the Dolphins. The Dolphins won some of those matchups. The 49ers won some of those matchups. The 49ers won more of the matchups than the Dolphins did. And that's what they were doing. It was just the free runners because they were coming after them. And then you saw them back off of that in the second half. The Dolphins didn't bring this pressure quite as often in the second half as they did in the first half. They sat back a little bit more, and they did a better job when they sat back. Made Brock Purdy have to read instead of just being able to deliver the football real quick. And that slowed down the 49ers offense, and they were able to generate the 3 field goals. That might be something to think about moving forward. That was something that one of the coaches against the 49ers said earlier this year. I don't remember which game it was. I don't remember if it was the opening week, and there was the questions to Matt Eberflus of the Bears was, are you going to bring pressure at Trey Lance? And he was pretty much, you bring pressure, but sometimes it's better just to play coverage and make that young guy read the defense and get to the right spot. And I think that's what we saw yesterday when they backed off a little bit and forced him to go to the right place. They were able to force Purdy to have to check the ball down instead of being able to drive it down the field for those bigger plays. So we'll see what happens with that as they move forward. They just did, Sean. Do you think the Niners can beat a playoff team with Purdy? They just did. They just beat the Miami Dolphins. Do I think they can do that to the NFC teams? I think the 49ers can beat any team in the NFC. I think the 49ers are going to have the most trouble with Philly, but everybody seems to have trouble with Philly. I think the 49ers can handle Minnesota. We saw them do that last year. I think the Cowboys are a little bit better than they were last year as well. I think the 49ers and Cowboys probably end up in the NFC Championship game if Jimmy Garoppolo's healthy. Now with Purdy in there, it definitely makes it more of a question mark. So, but can they beat a playoff team? Yeah, we saw it, and they're going to play against another one. I think the Buccaneers are going to be in the playoff position when they play next Sunday. We'll see. I don't know what the score of their game is right now. Last I saw at halftime, it was 10-3. Are they going to bring up Jacob Eason from the practice squad? It's going to be a matter. It's going to be between Jacob Eason and Josh Johnson, I think, at this point, unless they bring in another quarterback. But I would be surprised to see it be Jacob Eason. Josh Johnson understands the offense. He's been in it more. So we'll see there. And then going back to my thoughts on the game, went through the offensive side. Let's look at the defense really quick because you can't talk. I went into this week, and I don't usually do this, but I came out on Monday and I said the 49ers are going to win this game. And I said they're going to win because of the defense. And you have Fred Warner, you have Nick Bosa. You have them going up against the guy that's not. I know that the Dolphins are an explosive offense, but you don't have Patrick Mahomes over there. Nobody's going to mistake Tua Tagovailoa for Patrick Mahomes. And so the first guy that you got to talk to about is Fred Warner. And I talked about this on Saturday. Talked about it in my pregame write-up. I talked about it yesterday prior to the game. But taking away the middle of the field was going to be key for San Francisco against Tagovailoa. That's their bread and butter, was those passes into that middle third of the area. And you saw a couple big plays in that area. But other than that, the 49ers did a really good job and shut them down. Warner in particular, he had a couple of pass breakups on the day. One of the best, though, was in the first quarter. I don't remember if it was the second or third drive for Miami. I think it was the second. And he does a good job of carrying the tight end up the field, flattening off, and then staying underneath the crosser by Trent Sherfield, who was open behind him. There was a little bit of gap between him and Warner and Sherfield. Tagovailoa tries to go over the top, and it's going to be a nice long completion. Warner's able to get up, get his hand on the ball, knock it away. That was just a fantastic play by Fred Warner. And then on top of that, he finished the game off with an interception of Skylar Thompson. So big day for Fred Warner. And then Trey Greenlaw. The Niners, both these guys are studs. Greenlaw was all over the field again against Miami, led the Niners in tackles. He had 8. He also knocked away a pass and recovered a fumble. The fumble recovery was Greenlaw's second in as many weeks. Last week against New Orleans, he had his first ever fumble recovery against the Dolphins. He became the first 49er to force a fumble in consecutive weeks. Should be recover a fumble in consecutive weeks. And also return a fumble for a touchdown since 2019. So really good stuff there for Dre Greenlaw. And then I think perhaps the best play from Greenlaw yesterday came in the second half. Tagovailoa drops back. He hits Tyreek Hill. There's all kinds of grass between Hill and Greenlaw. And Greenlaw just runs him down and pushes him out of bounds, makes a tackle for a gain of only 3. That was super impressive athleticism from the linebacker. Really nice play by Dre Greenlaw. And again, the recoveries of the fumbles back-to-back weeks, the one taking it back in the end zone to make the score 33-17. Really good stuff by Dre Greenlaw. And then Daryl Granville, thank you for the super chat. Do you think we can throw deep to beat cover 0? That's really hard. In order to beat cover 0 deep, you've got to have the protection. If you only have 5 guys blocking, there's going to be somebody coming through. And I wouldn't say that's really a deep throw, but it's a quick, like a quick fade kind of thing, possibly. So it's tough, but it's really tough to be able to beat cover 0 deep. Usually it's the crossers and the quick cuts, or how you cover because of the man coverage. It's usually a quick crossing route or a quick out type of thing. Beat that guy one-on-one. Lukey says best high school football team in California. Folsom's a pretty darn good team up in the Sacramento area. Mater Dei's right up there. I don't know who everybody is right now. Sarah, I think, has been really good this year again. There's some really good high school football going on in the state of California, though. Wish I had an answer for you. I just haven't had a chance to pay attention to it this year like I did. Oh, Daryl comes in with another super chat. He says, Theraflu will knock that cold out. Now you got me sniffing. Sorry about that, Daryl. No, I'm almost done. Black 59 Razor comes in. Thanks for the super chat. And Black 59 Razor. He says that's Mater Dei. And Mater Dei is one of the better ones out there for sure. And then going back to the defensive side again, Nick Bosa, it's okay. Bosa started, he's played 11 games for the 49ers this year. When Bosa's been healthy, 49ers defense has allowed more than 19 points once. So 10 of the 11 games that Bosa's been on the field, they've held the opponents under 19 points. Again, that's another one of the reasons why I felt like the 49ers would win this game. I didn't think the Dolphins were going to get to 20. They did. They got to 17. Bosa got to the quarterback 3 times on Sunday. His best performance, and the first time that he's got 3 sacks in a game since he did that against Carolina his rookie season in 2019. Bosa now has 39 sacks through his first 4 seasons. He's only 5 behind Aldon Smith with the rest of the season to go. If he continues on this pace, he's going to pass Smith, or he would at least tie him on the last week, because it seems like Bosa's getting at least 1 sack every week. So just 1 sack for every the rest of the remaining games, and I think he ties Aldon Smith for the most sacks through 4 seasons as a member of the 49ers. That was a hot topic of discussion, is the differences between Bosa and Smith. That was something that was talked about more along the lines of like 2019 and 2020. On Sunday, Bosa also led the 49ers in quarterback hits. He had 4. So really good game from Nick Bosa. And then also, you got to talk about Eric Armstead. He hadn't played since week 4. Didn't make a tackle yesterday, but that doesn't mean he was insignificant. He played a big role for the 49ers yesterday. Really helped their run defense. And to an extent, the Dolphins only tried to run the ball 8 times, but they only picked up 33 yards there. But the defensive tackle, he came up big on consecutive plays in the third quarter. You might remember the 49ers, I think it was 49ers were up by 6. I think it was 23-16, 23-17 at that point. It was, it might have even been, it was the third quarter still. And the 49ers had kicked a field goal, and there was or had punted the ball. I think it was a punt. You had a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Tarvarius Moore. They gave the Dolphins 15 yards. The first play after that, Nick Bosa got called for roughing the passer, so it's another 15 yards. So they're already in the 49ers scoring in territory on the 49ers side of the field. You get an offsides call, makes it 1st and 15. Then they try to run, got stopped. Miami does. Niners stuff it for no gain, but Armstead draws a holding penalty, pushes them back 10 more yards. So now it's 2nd and 25. He beats the Dolphins right guard, gets in pressures Tagovailoa, hits him as he's throwing, as he tries to hurry the throw to Jeff Wilson Jr. And Jeff Wilson Jr. slips. Jimmy Ward makes the play, and you get the interception turnover. Really big play for the 49ers. So back-to-back big plays for Eric Armstead. You got to give him some credit because the big guy made them pay yesterday with some of that. And then Jimmy Ward, talked about him just right there on that last one. It was a zone. They're in zone. You get the rush. Ward breaks on the route by Jeff Wilson Jr. He slips. Tagovailoa throws the ball. And he's able to make a diving grab over the top of him. This is the 2nd interception of the season and ties his career high. Jimmy Ward, 2 interceptions last year for the first time in his career. Matches that with his 2nd interception yesterday. He also finished 2nd on the 49ers with 5 tackles, had a pass breakup in addition to the interception. So Jimmy Ward, this is the guy I've been riding all season for his struggles and coverage out of the slot. 2 interceptions in big situations over the last few weeks. That's a big thing for the 49ers. Congratulations to Jimmy Ward on this good play yesterday, and he's really starting to come into his own. Missed a lot of time there because of the injuries, but you're seeing him start to make plays. That's big time for the 49ers, especially when you have Jimmy Ward playing out of position like he is. And then last but not least, we have Deommodore Lenoir. He has been a solid replacement on the outside for the 49ers ever since Emmanuel Mosley was lost for the season with that knee injury. The second-year DB came away with the first interception of his career. It was a Tagovailoa tried to hit Tyreek Hill on a pass in the flat on the left side. Ball's a little high, bounces off Hill's hands. Lenoir was right there for the interception, and it gave the 49ers offense the ball to 25, and they converted that into 3 points. He only had one other tackle to go along with it, but like I said, Deommodore Lenoir is playing at a pretty good level. He's giving them basically what they had in Ambry Thomas last year, maybe a little bit better. So pretty good stuff there. And then thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. I feel I'll be all right. I just need to take some medicine, and I'll take a shower, and I'll be good. Got to be ready for Sunday. And then DeBuda with another super chat says, if Brock wins in the playoffs, you get rid of Trey or Jim. Well, Garoppolo's not under contract. Trey Lance. I mean, hey, why not bring them all back? Bring all 3 guys back again. Who's going to want to spend big money on Jimmy Garoppolo again? I think the 49ers might be able to make that whole thing work. I mean, realistically, why not go for another year of Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance talks? It makes these shows a lot more fun. I don't know. We'll see. I think that, this is Trey Lance's team. They're going to keep going back to him. There's a reason they spent all that. There's a reason they spent all that draft capital to go up and get him. It's going to be really interesting to see how this thing plays out. I had there's a lot of talk. I think I even wrote an article before the season about this situation. If you remember, it's kind of like the whole Kirk Cousins RG3 thing, right? The guy that was taking the top of the draft ends up Shanahan likes the other guy better. In that case, I said, no, it was always going to be Lance. Still believe it's going to be Lance, but if Brock Purdy does well, it's going to make things really interesting around Santa Clara this offseason. The 49er fan base will definitely be separated on that. So, DeBuda, thank you very much again for that super chat. I appreciate that. Nope, you are not going to have to put me on IR. I will be fine. Debuda says, "What did I tell you about Lenore, Jack?" Hey, if you told me that Lenore was going to be good, you are right. Um, Jack to IR with Jimmy. I might have to go there. I might have to, at least for a day or two. Um, Brady struggling with the Saints right now. Hey, the Saints, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have struggled on offense for most of this year. I know that you've got a big time quarterback in Tom Brady, but that offense has struggled. So that's it. Those are my 10, I think it was 10 big takeaways from the game. One more that I would talk about would be Ray McLeod. Ray McLeod, as a punt returner yesterday, had a really good game. He had two punt returns. I think he averaged 34 yards, I think it was, for Ray McLeod yesterday on his 2 punt returns. One of them for 20 yards, the other for 14. So that was pretty good. Ray McLeod has come along nicely for the 49ers special teams units over the second half of the year. That's really kicked into gear. So wanted to make sure I mentioned, shout out Ray McLeod as well. Stefano, thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate that. He says, I remember when it supposedly took 3 years to get the West Coast offense down. What is it about Shannon's offense that makes it easier to learn? Well, this is something that I keep hearing about the 49ers too. It's supposed to, about Shanahan's offense is it's supposed to take a couple of years for guys to really master it. But then, there's kind of becoming very, I think Shanahan's offense and the time that it takes to learn it is all dependent on whether you like the player or not. If you like the player and they're not doing well, then it's because the offense is tough to learn. If you don't like the player, or if you like the player and they're doing well, then it's not that big of a deal. There is a lot of, when it comes to Kyle Shanahan's offense, there's a lot of verbiage, and I think it's a matter of being able to be really good with your vocabulary and understand that verbiage and know, based on this and this, where I'm supposed to go, what am I looking at. It probably takes a little bit of time to really drill it down and really get at it. With these young quarterbacks the last couple of years, though, he's been able to get them up to speed quickly and kind of simplify things and make it work. So positive for the Flyers, and Stefano, positive that is a great super chat. I really want to say thank you, and I appreciate you sending that over. That's going to be it for the show tonight. If you guys can do me a favor, hit that like button on your way out, and then also, before you do that, hit the subscribe button. If you're over here, there's a bunch of names that I haven't seen before. Those of you that are watching the channel for the first time, please hit that subscribe button. If you have friends, family, 49er faithful that let them know about the channel. That's continued to grow this. And then on your way out, please make sure you hit that like button as well. The likes are what the lifeblood is for anybody who has a YouTube channel. That's how the signal gets amplified, because the more likes, the more YouTube realizes that people like it. And so I would ask that you do that as well. I thank you for all the well wishes over on the side. See you, KW 2024 or 2421. I see you, Foy. I'll be fine. Yeah, I just got to get a little Motrin in me and some cold medicine. I'll be good. Take a shower and be ready to go rock and roll. Hit the sack and watch some Grey's Anatomy as I get ready for bed. But thank you to Luke. Thank you. Have a great evening as well. Thank you, Alan. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday, what is left. Check the channel tomorrow. We'll have the film breakdown coming up, and Hammer and Nails as well at 5:30. Take care, everybody. Talk to y'all soon.